This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 101. And tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace.
Good evening.
Kodra.
Hi.
And Tam.
Hello.
So tonight, hopefully, I will be significantly less chipmunk than I was last week.
Hopefully.
That was a weird sequence of events because, when we were recording the show, I sounded completely normal to everyone else. But when I went back through and started trying to listen to the show, it was a complete and total mess. And like the disclaimer last week said, I didn't even think it was going to be salvageable that much. So we did do a little bit of a sound test. So hopefully, crossing fingers, that is going to stay good. And we'll continue on. So
If not, you can pretend you're a Dalmatian this week.
I will be a Dalmatian. I don't know what a Dalmatian sounds like. All I know about Dalmatians is they're the most, wired dogs ever. In college, a friend of mine had a Dalmatian, and it is very much not a dog that you ever want to have in an apartment. Anyway, so this week, one of the things I wrote about was a revelation that I had that I apparently like chasing unicorns. I like when there's a almost unobtainable goal, and I'm waiting on a random sequence of events to click just right and give me the perfect item that I really want. And this all came about in a discussion that I've been trying to figure out for a long time. Anytime I don't like a game, and it's not that I don't like a game, anytime a game just doesn't click with me, it bugs me and I try and figure it out. And for years, I've been trying to sort out why Guild Wars 2 didn't really click for me. And most of the AggroChat folks, save Grace, have been playing Warframe. And that has been their zen game over the last few months. And there was always something that just didn't fit right for me. And I don't know what. So I was sitting there and I was thinking about how excited I am anytime a weapon drops in Destiny and there's a total random roll of perks on the gun, and that makes it exciting to me because there's such a thing as a god roll out there, but what works for me doesn't necessarily work for other people. And it's always interesting to me to be handed a gun with a set of imperfect stats on it, and I either learn how to use it, or I get used to it, or I get rid of it. But that whole process, I think, is exciting to me. And this led to a lengthy discussion one day with Tam about this subject.
I hate random nonsense. I can deal with randomness when the results of randomness are all, when it comes to drops and whatnot. I can deal with randomness when the results of randomness come out to be relatively equal. These three things are all randomized, but they're randomized with the same item budget and thus are roughly equivalent, even if they fit different flavors. But man, nothing turns me off faster than, there's a good roll for this, but you're probably not gonna get it.
Well, and the thing is okay, that good roll is super personal. There are certain weapons that I've seen in Destiny that people consider a god roll, and I can't do shit with them. They just don't work for me. Whereas I have certain weapons that are considered suboptimal that I can perform like crazy with. I can headshot like mad.
Yeah, see, I like that kind of thing. But I remember Diablo, it's what turned me off of Diablo. It was this item dropped off a boss, but it's a terrible roll. It's basically trash.
Or it's a piece of jewelry without a gem slot in it.
Yeah.
Which makes it either useless or I'm going to have to spend all of this money re-rolling this item until it gets a gem slot.
Well, and that's the thing that gets me. That's why Diablo works for me, is because there's a way to mitigate the randomness. Like, you just put your finger on it. Like, if I can go to the enchanter and mess with the stats and get something that is much, more favorable or much more what I need, then I'm okay with some randomness. And I'm even okay with sometimes there's just items that are junk and even enchanting isn't going to save them, because I know if I get something that's relatively close, I can make it perfect if I spend some time. But games that have a random system like that and there's no way to mitigate it, that is a complete turnoff. Like, just knowing that, like, oh, this is almost perfect, but there's, this really one suboptimal piece of it, and it just makes me want to throw it away. That's so incredibly frustrating. It makes me want to just throw my hands up and wander off.
Yeah, that's 100% how I feel whenever I see that an item rolls its stats randomly, and not like, I mean, the WoW example is of the whale gear. Of the whale gear makes me irrationally angry because it shouldn't exist. Don't ever give me a reward that's worthless.
It used to be actually pretty good tanking gear once upon a time for newbie tanks.
No.
It was spirit stamina. It was never good for anyone.
So
maybe for a brief window in beta when Spirit did a thing.
Well, okay, so maybe it was only good for warriors because there was a brief period of time when Spirit increased rage regeneration. And it was actually kind of good at that point.
I don't think that was in live.
Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Like, that's the problem with playing a significant amount of beta, is I forget what happened in beta and what happened in live. But I do remember absolutely in beta looking for whale gear.
So I used to be probably more on Bell's side with this. Like, I think there's a way to make random loot interesting, because I remember all of the fun stuff I had with, like, looking at loot tables and studying bosses and, like, hoping to get the stuff that I want. I remember being fun. And now, like, I would rather incrementally progress towards something. I'd like to see something happening where I am getting closer to something being mine. That's more exciting to me.
Well, and I think part of this is like, you guys oftentimes go into these games with a predetermined design in your head that you want to make happen. And me, honestly, like, I don't know what I want until I find it. So I kind of like being handed things and, here, try this, or here, try this, until finally one of them clicks. And that's what I guess I like so much about the way that the weapons work in Destiny, is like, there's so many perks that I didn't know if I liked or not until I actually played with it, because it sounds kind of lackluster just by reading it, but actually using a gun with that on it was really cool. Like, okay, Firefly sounds amazing. Like, on headshots, it causes mobs to explode. So sure, that one was one I knew ahead of time. But Rodeo, which is a stability perk that increases stability of weapons, doesn't seem like it does much until you get a weapon with it, and it's like, oh my god, this is so much better. And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't been handed a random weapon, because it's never something I would have necessarily chosen, because just reading the text doesn't seem clear what it does. And a lot of the problem I have in Warframe is I have all these mods, and I have no clue what I want to do. Like, I just don't have a damn clue what I want to be when I grow up in Warframe. So I never know what to build for, and it's the same problem I've always had with League of Legends. Is like, there's all this stuff, I don't know what I want to build, so I'll just pick up a Dorian's Blade, and I'll pick up several of them, because I have no clue what I want to do.
So what I like about this is that for me, it doesn't matter, because everything I've ever gotten in this game is worth it eventually.
Well, like, worth it if you know how to build it out correctly.
What do you mean?
Well, like, you still need the correct mods for something to be useful.
Yes and no, because it's pretty much the same mods for most things.
Yeah, like, what feels different in Warframe is the gun, not the mods.
Yeah, well, but the guns in Warframe don't even really feel that different to me.
I have a thing that shoots giant cubes that explode when I shoot them.
feel like you have not played with
is
enough
a
different
that is-
guns in Warframe.
Well, no, I mean, like, okay, I guess it's because it's a third-person game, and I'm not spending as much time looking at the gun as it's firing. And that's the part I really like in Destiny is, like, the animation, the sounds, the recoil, the way that the barrel looks, the way that it flares when it shoots. That's all very close and up in your face as you're firing it.
I see
Whereas
those in Warframe very clearly.
I guess I don't even notice it. I'm too busy trying to draw beads in on mobs as they're coming at me.
See, what surprises me is that you say that you kind of are given things until you find something you like, but you do have a thing that you like, even more than I do.
Oh?
You want to play, I mean, in almost every game I see, you want to play something big and smashy. Whatever lets you be big and smashy. And if you can't be big and smashy, you're almost always unhappy with the game. And I see it in a bunch of I've seen it in a bunch of like other MMOs actually.
Yeah.
Where you don't it's like I don't feel big and smashy enough, or I don't feel tanky enough. And like I play a billion different things, but I have I think it's I go and I collect a lot of information so that I can know what I want to build and how, so that I don't waste time, because I hate wasting time.
Yeah, and I guess the thing with, like, that I'm running into on the Rhino, and because the Rhino is probably the correct Warframe for me, is it just doesn't seem like there's a really great way to level. Or at least not in the way that I would want to level. Like, my favorite way to level in Destiny is patrol. I love just poking around on the planet and blowing shit up for hours at a time and collecting random drops, and I don't know, like, I haven't found a mission construct that I like well enough to repeat it. And I really
survivals for leveling up low-level
I was about to
frames.
say survival sounds like what you want.
And there's a lot of missions that I really don't like. Like, I do not like the spy missions. I do not like the execute this person because I'm never fast enough to get to them before they run away.
You may actually like spy missions the way we do them in sorties, by the way.
Oh, what do you do in sorties?
We usually send one
Can't
person.
do them.
We usually send one person in to do the room while everybody else keeps the retreat safe. So we usually need somebody big and smashy to like provide an exit.
Cover.
Yeah, but yeah, I get what you're saying with Destiny. And like I haven't played any of the new stuff because the game lost me just so hard that I don't. I hear the Taken King stuff is good, but it burned me so hard that I'm not interested in paying money.
Well,
to find out if it didn't.
and it's not just the Taken King stuff. They righted a lot of the wrongs. Like, yes, it is still grindy, but the moment-to-moment gameplay plus the fact that you're actually getting stuff to drop feels better. Also, the fact that you can take the same weapon and keep leveling it up indefinitely. And same with the gear, the infusion system made a big difference. And especially with the upcoming patch, the infusion system is 1-to-1 now. So no longer are you having to lose levels whenever you infuse an item into another item.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never actually had an issue with like
Progression.
My issue was always like I don't understand why I am doing this. Like this has all of the mechanics and gameplay about Destiny I loved a lot. In the original, it felt hollow. It felt soulless when I was playing it. Like it felt like the barest construct of a game without like any interesting stuff going on that would keep me engaged.
And I get that. I mean, the story was kind of lousy. Or the story just wasn't there. It's not that it was lousy or good or bad. It just didn't exist. And unfortunately, like, up until the point that you get to the end of the first content, that is still very much the case. However, the House of Wolves and the Dark Below, and then the Taken King actually added a ton of interesting story going on.
Sure, and like the thing is with Warframe is also like that, but Warframe I am always progressing. Like I don't feel like I ever waste my time in Warframe.
I don't feel like I ever waste my time in Destiny.
I feel like any time I'm playing where I don't get a where I don't have a guaranteed path forward is time that I feel like I'm wasting. Anytime, like, and that's the thing, is farming for a drop. I mean, like grinding dungeons for a drop in WoW, the only time that wasn't wasted in that entire process was the one run where it drops. Yep. Every other run was wasted time.
Exactly.
And that makes me crazy.
See, it feels less like that to me, because they've added a bunch of little systems in where every so often you're hitting thresholds and you get something cool.
This isn't just Destiny. This is every game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fascinating how much I now notice this because of Warframe. I used to be on board with random loot is a lot more fun because it's exciting and it adds this interesting element, but I don't want that to be what is necessarily the interesting element. So like I still think random loot is interesting if it's all sellable. Like, that's how you create an economy. And that's what I like about Warframe is their random loot is all mods that you can sell to other players.
I think systems, well, like, going back to WoW, when there was Valor or Justice or whatever other currency that was sort of your randomness mitigation currency that could be, used to purchase the stuff that you just couldn't get to drop, then like I think that random loot is good because hey, it is more fun and exciting to have it actually drop. But man, it helps a lot if you know that even if it never drops, if you run 10 dungeons, you'll get enough currency to buy whatever you need or something equivalent to it.
Yup.
Like, having some randomness is still good because it does add that little bit of surprise fun, but there has to be a mitigation if you get bad luck.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that burned me so hard to the point where I quit Destiny was I am not good enough to do the content that guarantees me good drops. I don't have good enough gear. The only way I can get good enough gear is if I can get it to drop. I can't get it to drop.
Yeah, see, that is no longer an issue.
And it may not be an issue anymore, but it burned me so hard that I'm done. Like, it's the same. I mean, and I had the same problem with, the Secret World, was it?
Secret World actually let us progress via Black Bullion.
Oh, that's right. I don't remember what MMO we were playing, but I could not get a drop. And it was like, I need this drop to keep on going, but I can't get it, and I hate everything.
Honestly, I don't know what MMO we played recently that might be.
I don't think it was recent. It was just something that stuck in my mind.
Well, the big thing that changed with year 2 is, so in year 1 there were absolutely things that if you did not have this, you were wrong. Like, so the Galahorn was the rocket launcher that everyone sought, and if you did not have that weapon, you were screwed because it was significantly better than anything else you could get. In year 2, I've noticed they usually have 3 or 4 answers to the same problem. So there'll be 3 or 4 weapons with exactly the same archetype that do slightly different things, but they could fill a niche all the same. Like, so you can go get any of those, and it works fine. And the big thing that they added in this time around is Arms Day. And every week on Wednesday, you can purchase packages from the gunsmith. And if you are rank 1, you can pick from 1 roll. If you're rank 2, you can pick from 2 rolls. If you're rank 3, you can pick from 3 rolls. And that's where it caps. And you can get to rank 3 really fast. So that, like, he brings weapons every week. And they'll be of a base type. But a lot of times, those weapons fill in niches that are from higher tier weapons. Like, they replicate. So if there's a legendary version of a gun that you can get dropped out in the world or from one of the factions, a lot of times there's a base version that comes from Arms Day that is equally good, and it fills the niche of the bullet hose or the long-range shotgun or the whatever niche you're trying to fill. And by picking up one of those, you can, like, just by buying one of these packages each week, there's a good chance that you're going to get one that's usable. out of that batch. And if you don't like 1 week's rolls, you just hold your package into the next week and then see what he brings next time. And once you have one of those packages, it's always going to guarantee you that specific gun, just with a different roll type.
That actually sounds more infuriating.
Really?
Because
I think it's freaking awesome.
On a specific day to do what the game should have been doing from the start.
Well, okay, but there's like 3 or 4 dozen other ways to get it. But This is one thing that you can passively guarantee that you're going to get cool shit on this one day. I mean, and after a point, it's no longer that important, so I don't even buy these packages anymore because I have pretty much everything that I would want. But it's like yet another way to get people gear.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those like that's less on the randomness and more on the I don't like games telling me when to play them. It's a different button that's pushing.
Oh, see, but like I think Arms Day is such a cool idea, and I think Zur Day on Friday through Saturday night is cool. That this guy shows up and sells cool stuff, and every week he brings different stuff.
Yeah, but what if I regularly can't play that in that window? I just get screwed.
Yeah, that's a whole other complaint for probably another whole entire discussion about like specific limited time or just specifically scheduled events.
I mean, and I understand, like, I missed 1 week where Zur had something I wanted and I was out of town. And it sucked.
Is it a single day for Zur? Or
no. He shows up like early, like late Thursday night, early Friday morning, and then he goes away tonight. We're recording on Saturday, so it would be, late Saturday night, early Sunday morning is when he disappears. So there's several days in a row that he's there selling stuff. But like everybody,
Warframe is smaller than that actually for the Void Trader.
It just feels cool that there's stuff going on during the week. And like one of the things that drives me nuts with a game is when there's not stuff going on. Like this is a reason for me to show up because it's and the Arms Day thing isn't one specific day. You basically have a week to buy a package. And then the next day the next week it'll be delivered, and as long as you're holding the package, it doesn't matter when you log in again, he'll offer you that weapon. But I don't know, like there's just something for me about knowing that I could get a really cool item out of this. Yeah. And it's like
I would much rather know how exactly to get the cool item and not worry about whether I get lucky or not.
The bird in the bush is always way more alluring to me than the bird in the hand. Like, there's always something cool waiting over the horizon. Like, I kill a random mob outside of Stormwind. I could get an epic. Like, that's something that could happen. That's something that's happened to me. I go to a dungeon.
But you could.
Right. Like, it's rare, but, like, I go to a dungeon. Just because I have this piece of gear now, I might get the Warforged version that's a little bit better. Like, I just like the concept of not knowing what I'm getting.
I want to know exactly what I'm getting.
Yeah, I want to know exactly what I'm getting, and I want to make sure that I'm doing so efficiently and not wasting my time.
And I don't know, like, I find myself losing interest when I know the entire table of drops, and I've seen it all drop. And I know there's nothing more interesting for me to get out of a place.
See, the thing for me is I know I'm okay with it when I'm on the cutting edge of content. Like, when I'm it's one of the reasons why I love that leveling up in a new MMO time period, because nobody knows what else could be out there. But I hate when I don't know, but somebody else does, and somebody else knows how wrong I'm being by not pursuing this thing. And I don't know just because I haven't, like, delved into the drop tables or whatever. It harkens back to, like, my time playing Magic, where it was like, haha, you didn't know about that card? Like, your deck doesn't even work without that card. Why did you even think your deck would work if you didn't have that card? I didn't even know that card existed.
And I guess I'm just not competitive enough to care if I'm being optimal.
I start twitching if I am not being as optimal as I can be.
Oh yeah, see, like, I'm happiest in Magic the Gathering when I'm just pulling random cards out of a pack and playing with them because I thought they had cool artwork.
That's also when I'm happiest, although I'm not doing it because they have cool artwork.
Like, there's been several.
To try to hold on to that period in a new game, like, because after playing anything for very long, I will end up on the end of the spectrum where I want to be optimal and I want to be doing what's the best and progressing as far and as fast as I can. But what I enjoy more is actually the beginning part where I'm floundering around and everything is interesting and new.
Yeah, I
I am
being
probably
in
somewhere in the middle there. Like, I really want to know what optimal is, whether or not I'm doing it.
Yes.
Particularly in, well, we take a Warframe example here. My favorite gun is not one that is considered to be great. It is a bullet hose in almost every sense of the term, but is also held back by the fact that it shoots projectiles and is not hit scan. And these aren't even the fastest projectiles ever. Like, the Voltor is faster. But the Super just kind of creates an amazing cloud of death, and I love it.
I don't know, there's a lot of things that make me feel stagnant in a game, and like one of them is if I'm not constantly getting more gear, which is always difficult as the game ages out, because then I'm swapping out gear less often. And I don't know, it's just been, like, it's been fun because, like, I'll pick up a weapon and I fall in love with it, and then a week later I'll get something else as a random drop, and I'll fall in love with that, and then that'll be my new best thing, and then I'll run into something else, and then that becomes the new best thing for a while. And it keeps me happy. Which is what came up with the term chasing unicorns, because apparently I like chasing unicorns. I like chasing that thing on the horizon that I can't see yet.
Have you done much in the tower?
What do you mean the tower?
In Warframe?
Like, I've done the tower missions with you guys.
Like, all the tower is chasing unicorns.
It really is.
Like, I enjoyed the tower, but the tower requires a group.
It actually doesn't. Like, you can do most Tower 1 missions with a decently leveled character solo.
When you become familiar enough with it, it doesn't even have to be decently leveled.
It's true.
Yeah, but like what we did together as a group, I enjoyed the tower. I liked the tower far better than anything else that we had done. Mostly the tower survival missions, or the tower, the one where you get to pick whenever the hell you want to exit.
Survival. Yeah, I think survival is probably your mode.
It's the ones I've had the most fun on.
But the tower is all about chasing your chance of this. It's where prime parts drop. So you're going in, even if you know you may have a tiny, tiny chance at a particular part, you can still go in and hope for that drop.
Yup.
Or you could do what I mostly end up doing and collect a whole bunch of other drops and sell them to players.
And then ultimately buy the thing you were wanting.
Pretty much.
Like, if I could ever get to a point of equilibrium where I felt like I knew enough about the game, or I was good enough at the game to where I could just go solo that kind of stuff, I'd probably be happy. But it seems like I level so insanely slow. And maybe I need to just run survival back to back.
Survival's very fun.
But like, as a group, it felt like I was leveling really fast. But solo, it feels like I'm not moving at all.
More enemies spawn when you're in a group.
Yeah.
You tend to get XP for actually the same, whether you're in a group or not. So it's definitely much faster to level in a group.
Yeah, that is a game that, like, honestly, it's a game that I actually sometimes, if I'm by myself, will turn on just the free-for-all mode and go into random groups, just because there is, for the most part, no downside to having other players in your party, with the exception of some missions like Spy and, what's
Rescue.
it called? Rescue, yeah.
So is there anything equivalent to running strikes in this game where you just enter a queue and get a random event with random people?
Yeah.
Not random ones. You could just turn on public and do that for any mission in the game, essentially.
Right. But I was looking for a dungeon finder where basically, like, it randomly rotates me through stuff because, like, I don't necessarily care about any given mission. I just wanted to do content. Like, I like, there was a period of time where I hated dungeon finders, but now I'm used to them and I like to just ride along and, like, I'll run 3-4 strikes back to back in Destiny, and it doesn't matter that I've seen them a bajillion times, I'm just wanting to run something. So there's no general dungeon findery type functionality, it's just you have to queue for something, and if people are there, you'll get publicked into them.
Pretty much. Or if people can join you later if you have not progressed too far into the mission.
Okay, we've probably covered this topic enough. Unless anybody else has anything else they want to add before we move on.
Might be a little out of order, but on the subject of optimal builds and not optimal builds, I did not get very far in the Diablo season this time. Probably because I tried to play Demon Hunter.
I feel like there were definitely some of the set dungeons that were way harder than others.
That is definitely true.
I got the easy one as a Crusader.
Yeah, I mean, I got frustrated with one of the wizard ones, but, they're funkily, like, some of them weirdly gear level dependent, like, that they actually got harder as you got better gear. So there's definitely some weirdnesses going on there.
Yeah, the Crusader set was basically things fall over when they touch you because it buffed your thorns. And that seemed to be one of the easiest ones.
But the whole not getting very far this season is not an unusual thing this season, apparently. Like, I've definitely had a few other friends sort of complaining for whatever reason that they didn't make it as far as they expected to, thought they would this season.
I got the set items and made it through the ability to get the pet and things like that, but I did not progress far enough to get the item set or the additional vault slot. I mean,
yeah, and so that's what I want to rant about this some tonight because, and I already ranted about it on my blog, but I still have things to get off my chest because it is so incredibly frustrating to me that they took something that is such a huge quality of life upgrade, right? Like having an entire extra stash tab is pretty huge. And they buried it so far down in the season. So it was, I think, 2 tiers higher up or whatever, more difficult in the season than the farthest I had ever gotten before. And the requirements for it included things like leveling 3 gems to level 55 and clearing Greater Rift 60 solo and some I think either 4 or 5 minute, I think 4-minute Torment 10 Rift clears. I mean, and you had to complete 2 seasonal conquests, which is something that I had never gotten 1 conquest before. So it seemed like completely unobtainable, like for someone at my level and amongst most of my friends. Like previously, I was about as far as progressed, if not farther, than most of the other folks in my various guilds and friends lists. So it felt really punishing to have it so far buried. And the thing is, I eventually did it. Like I got a bunch of help and I managed to do the things that I had to do solo eventually. But by the time that I finished, I wasn't like, oh yeah, this is great. It was like, oh, thank God, I never want to think about this again. It was awful. I don't know, I understand that they want to do something cool to encourage people to participate more, but put something cool and cosmetic there. I'm totally fine having fancy banners and, portrait frames and things. But when it's something that's an actual gameplay assistance and being able to store a ton more stuff in your bank is pretty huge. Let me access that at a reasonable level of play and not at a ridiculous level of play.
well, yes. And the problem that I had with it was that there was such a huge leap between the last of the normal seasonal rewards and then this thing.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the normal seasonal rewards were what? The worst thing that you had to do was complete one of the set dungeons was probably the hardest thing you had to do to get the pet, right?
Yeah, and I think you had to have a solo 30 rift to get all of them, and that's reasonable. If you've got your set dungeon, if you're set dungeon ready, you should be able to do a solo 30 rift.
Yeah, but 60? That's a ton of work. And I mean, some of the things that I managed to do, I really only, was able to because I had friends who were way more into it than I was, who could carry me around for a while until I got some Paragon levels and a little bit of extra gear. And that was enough to push me over the edge. But, I mean, I mostly like to play Diablo solo. And so, like, being reliant also on other people and feeling like I'm being carried is never, ever, ever fun. Like, yes, it was great, and I'm really grateful. And I did get the reward, but it's not fun to get carried. It's just not.
Well, I mean, it was fun during the season when we were running around as a giant murder ball, because, like, it felt like we were all getting something out of it.
Yeah.
But getting
different.
carried that hard is just, no, it's not fun at all.
And there's a difference, I guess, too, between, like, I'm gonna carry someone for 45 minutes to level them from 1 to 70, and then after that, then we're kind of on par and we can run around together. But being carried through many, many rifts and, through various, some of the achievements and things was not fun. Like, knowing that some of those speed runs and things that I would probably never be able to get on my own and just had to ask someone to help me, that's not fun.
It puts me in mind of that Encourage grind, where I was just like, this benefits nobody but me, but I need other people's help.
Yeah. Well, and the tangible benefit there was so far off that, like, while you're doing it, you couldn't hardly see that you're making any progress as well.
Well,
So, I haven't really paid much attention to the next season. Are they changing any of this?
I don't actually know. I'm pretty sure that there is going to be another stash tab, because I believe that they said that that was the intent, that there would be a finite number of additional stash tabs and one would be available each season for the next few seasons. But I don't know whether that means it's going to be at the same place in the ladder, or whether they might decide to move it around somewhere else or what. Because they did, when this season started, or just with the patch before it, I guess, they did also have another stash tab that was added that you could just purchase with gold, which was great. Like, it was a ton of gold, and it was 100% worth it. I was totally happy to do that. So I'm kind of hoping maybe if they do it that way every season, where there's one that's just kind of almost impossible to get and one that you can just buy, then eventually the people who really work their butts off will get their tabs finished early, but everyone will eventually be able to get them. I would be okay with that.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with, like, doing stupid bullshit gets you something there twice as fast. But the rest of us can get there just by playing seasons.
Yes.
I mean, that seems perfectly reasonable, like, to have a really hard achievement that just makes you ahead of the curve. But I wasn't sure if that was going to happen every time, to where we got to buy one as well.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that, and I am suspicious that the answer may be no, but I don't know, and I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed and see what happens.
All I do know is that I'm a sucker, and I will be playing Season 6, or whatever season we're going to be coming up with, because I really enjoy those first few weeks when everyone's excited about the game again.
Yeah, I absolutely cannot wait for the new season to start. Like, this one hasn't ended yet, but I'm totally finished with it, and I can't wait for the next one to start over again. And
Well, like that
We'll say
that
if I join
Friday
in this
night.
time, I'm not going to make the same mistake, and I'll just play another wizard.
yeah, that's what I
Okay.
was gonna just say, that, like, I've learned my lesson at this point, and I will pretty much always be leveling a wizard, maybe a witch doctor, but probably a wizard.
I don't think I'm going to re-roll this time, but I'm absolutely going to play another Crusader, because I had more fun as a Crusader than I've had on a lot of the other characters.
Is wizard the easiest to level?
It's just
Not
what I
easier
find
than
fun.
It's definitely my favorite, but it's probably not any easier than, like, Barbarian or Monk. Crusader is actually probably the easiest. Ton of AoE, really tanky.
Crusader is super survival, and it has enough smashy to make me happy. But I like that my Crusader is like passively making everyone better with my aura. And like not in small measure. Like that aura does some powerful things. Maybe not as powerful as the monk aura, but it's still pretty awesome. But yeah, like that first Friday of this last season was amazing. That was like some of the most fun I've had playing Diablo ever. Like since the original Diablo. So we just ran around and God, we were up forever. I faded early, but I know I was up until like maybe almost 2.
Yeah, I held out almost the latest because I think I got my full set bonus, like got 70 and got my full set bonus by the end of the first night.
Yeah, you and Karth you guys were up for a long time. But what I like about Seasons is it almost is like this little small version of all the excitement of a new MMO. Like, it encapsulates those first few weeks of really fun when everybody's into it, and then you finish leveling, and then you can forget about the game for a few months, and then it comes back, and you're all excited again. I like it. So speaking of things that excite me, this is a horrible segue.
Whoa.
Maybe work on that one a little bit.
Yeah.
Still doing phrasing?
Phrasing?
Are we still phrasing?
I am phrasing all the time. So, okay, I'm a diehard Care Bear, or at least I thought I was. I purposefully avoid PvP. It's pissed me off when games try and force me to PvP, yet all of a sudden I am PvPing a lot in Destiny. I've actually found that I enjoy the Crucible, and I don't know what's different. Like, did I just finally decide that PvP is a thing that I should pay attention to, or...
Is it you're opposed to PvP, or you're opposed to extremely poor implementations of PvP?
I don't know. Like, maybe that. I kind of, like, honestly, I remember...
a whole bunch of examples of the second category.
Honestly, like, I remember in Burning Crusade actually kind of enjoying doing arenas. Because it felt like there was no negative to it. And the gear that I could get from arenas was actually beneficial for the other things I wanted to do.
There's never really been a negative to doing PvP, other than getting frustrated.
Well, okay, but I guess part of...
I can think of some negatives to doing PvP.
I guess the thing that's frustrated me with PvP is, like, it made you care about PvP gear, and PvP stats, and PvP focuses, and I didn't like having to segment off... Like, here's this stuff that is only useful for playing this one game mode. And I think that's maybe what's been the wall for me with PvP, is that it didn't somehow relate to the other things that I wanted to do. And I guess in like playing the Crucible and stuff, it just feels like I'm just doing another mode. Like, it's another option I have, and it's fun sometimes. And the stuff that I get as drops is actually relevant to any of the other stuff that I want to do in the game. And during Burning Crusade, to some extent, the gear that I was getting out of arenas was actually relevant, or at least equal to some of the stuff I was getting out of raids.
So, I mean, say what you will about them, Bungie really does know how to do multiplayer first-person, like PvP first-person shooter games. That's sort of their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And, like, this week is Iron Banner, and it's actually made me care about Iron Banner, and I'm trying to hit rank 5, and I'm trying to complete all the stuff, and I can start getting some cool drops that are, you know, exclusive to Iron Banner. And it's been interesting. Like, I've actually changed a lot of the way that I play in PvP as the week's gone on. As I've figured out, oh, you know, shotguns are really cool, so, like, I'll totally run a shotgun and use some of the powers of, you know, my Titan to get in and shotgun stuff, and then, you know, maybe survive if somebody else isn't there. It's just weird, because, like, I always thought I had, like, this mental block towards PvP, and maybe it's exactly what you said, Ash, that I just don't like bad implementations of PvP. Or more so, I don't like PvP that's completely disconnected and walled off and doesn't matter. That it's just this thing that if you want to care about PvP, you're playing a different game than if you care about PvE. And I feel like a lot of the WoW history has been that you are either a PvP player or you're a PvE player, and neither the two will meet, other than the fact that they're constantly having to nerf abilities for PvE because they're broken in PvP.
I think that's part of where the concern comes from.
Yeah, I think so.
I have my own share of bitterness about those types of things.
Well, and there's also, I mean, some things that I encountered in Burning Crusade, which is that, like, at the level that I was playing at back then, which was not a very high level, some of the best possible gear that I could get in the game was from PvP, and I did not want to touch it. And it was frustrating to have people yelling at me like, "Oh, well, you need to go PvP so you can get this weapon," and just, no, I don't want to do that. It's like having them separate, it's tricky.
Yeah, and I remember I largely did arenas on my Paladin, which was like an alt at the time, so that I didn't have to worry about really gearing him. I knew every couple weeks if I did my arena matches, I'd be able to buy another piece of gear and slowly progress him. And for the most part at that time, like, healer PvP gear and healer raid gear were pretty equivalent. But it's just interesting, like, it almost makes me want to go back and reevaluate some of the other games I PvP'd in. Because, like, I can remember actually having fun playing Hutball in Star Wars: The Old Republic.
I loved SWTOR's low-level PvP bracket.
Yes.
It's an important word
Yes.
word there.
Yes. Also that.
It is a very important distinction, but yes, like, and that's what I find in games. I tend to like the PvP bracket where your gear doesn't matter so much, that everyone is on a more level playing field. And then when you get to the higher brackets where they're the obvious PvP players who have worked their butts off to get the best PvP gear and they will wreck you in 10 seconds, then PvP is no longer fun.
I think that might honestly be that point you just said might be what makes Destiny enjoyable to me, is that their PvP other than Iron Banner is scaled. And it doesn't matter what level you go in at, they scale up your weapons as though they were the highest level. So you can walk in with like level 20 and all of your stuff is on equal footing as someone with 320 light. And that makes it entertaining because, like, you see players that obviously are brand new to the game, and they're not. It's not that they're buffed up artificially and they really aren't on even footing as most bolstering systems work. Like, legitimately, I've gotten wrecked by people in what look to be the starting set of gear, and maybe that makes a big difference. And I can't really think. Like, I don't know how many games have done that. I know I've played other games that had boosted PvP, but I'm drawing a blank.
Actually, is one of the few MMO examples I can think of.
Yeah. I think Wildstar's leveling PvP brackets also.
I think a thing that games would do well to is to also have, like, a ladder-based PvP bracket and a casual PvP bracket. So that...
Who plays the other one? In the world plays the casual one. The ladder one exists.
I would absolutely play the other one. Like, I would absolutely play non-ladder.
Keeping both of those queues populated in games that split like that. Final Fantasy actually has this problem.
Because, like, I'm not super interested in being hyper-competitive. I just like playing. I like the intra-match rivalries, I've found out. Like, this person comes over and kills me, I go kill them. You know, they try and kill me back. You know, I try and avoid them. And it's not like I necessarily care one way or the other. I just kind of like the cat and mouse that exists for that game. And then the person goes away, and then I develop another one that I'm focused on. Does Warframe have PvP?
It does. We haven't played it at all.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's got a bunch of stuff that... It's got a bunch of, like, separate rules for PvP. But I don't actually know anything about them.
I also know nothing about them. Most mods I know actually aren't usable in PvP. Except for a few that are marked as being usable, or ones you get via PvP.
Yeah.
I will say, as much as I seem to be into PvP right now with Destiny, I am still very anti-faction wall.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can absolutely enjoy PvP and
organized PvP and what usually happens in games that have two factions that encourage world PvP.
Yeah, and so I guess while we're sort of segueing into this, I can bring up, we talked last time about Wildstar and how they had this, great initiative to, get feedback from the community about the faction wall and try to make a decision about potentially dropping it or, getting feedback on that. And then they just released this new patch, which is full of tons of new content, which is all pretty great. But one of the pieces in this new zone is an event that is a sort of faction rivalry deal where the event starts and both factions start trying to complete it, but only one faction can actually progress to the point where you can fight the world boss that spawns. And it's funny, I had forgotten that Wildstar actually launched with an event like this. And I ran it a ton, and it was great because on the server I was on, everyone was exiles, and we always got the event.
Oh yeah, I remember that event. I was Dominion. We never got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even once.
So, and now there's a way to get the faction around that without doing the event, but that misses the point that the event is actually kind of fun, and it's pretty stupid and annoying that you could be working really hard towards it, and no matter what you do, if the other side just has more people, you're boned. So I don't know. I'm really hoping that that the faction wall comes down and that everyone can participate in those kinds of things. Like in concept, it's an interesting idea, but in practice, it's just really frustrating, especially for an event that is only going to spawn every 4 or 8 hours. And randomly at that. So, I happen to be on when this cool thing is happening and I'm working towards it and everyone is together. And then, nope, the other faction got it. I guess I am just SOL.
Which reminds me a lot of the green dragons from, Vanilla WoW, where if you just happen to be on the right time and your team happened to get over there at the right time, you got the dragon kill. And everyone else on the server was screwed for another day, or however long it took for those things to respawn. I don't remember.
And it feels weird and it feels off in a modern game where there's no mob tagging, like I can go help other people kill stuff anywhere out in the world, whether they're exile or Dominion, like it doesn't matter. But for, this big cool event, nope.
Well, and on Entity, Exile players are really cool about helping Dominion people kill world bosses. I've rolled up a lot of times where a group of Dominion players were trying to take on a world boss, and then all of a sudden a bunch of Exiles have just popped in and helped them out.
Well, and at this point, it doesn't matter who gets the tag for most world bosses, everyone is going to get loot. So, there's all this incentive to just work together and everybody help each other out. And, especially in a game where the population isn't that high and they're trying to hold on to people and, it just feels wrong to have, especially a brand new big cool event that ends up getting weirdly limited that way. But other than that, the rest of the patch has been really cool. I still haven't finished seeing all the new stuff that's there.
I honestly didn't realize that Arcterra had dropped.
Yeah, it was pretty... Well, there was an announcement that it would be, within the next couple weeks, and then there were just really a few days' notice before the actual patch dropped. But it's great. I love it because, as always, I'm running around reading all the lore and just looking at all of the new places and looking at everything and listening to the music. So, but I still haven't actually gotten a chance to do that new event thing because the Dominion actually, the one time I was on and saw it, the Dominion got it.
Has it brought a lot of people back into the game during this period of time?
I think so. Well, I don't know about brought back or just, the population seems, pretty active in that zone for sure. I mean, there's some neat things going on with the zone where there's sort of continually spawning bosses of various levels of difficulty, and the more and the faster that you kill them, the bigger bosses show up, and so there's always a swarm of people waiting for each boss to spawn so that they can get bigger bosses to continue to spawn. I'm just hoping that it keeps up. Systems like that are fun when content is new and everyone is playing and everyone is in that zone, but a few months down the line when it's not the shiny new thing anymore, are there still going to be enough people around to ever spawn a 20-person boss? Who knows?
Yeah, that was the problem with Rift, is the zone-wide invasions were really fun while people were still leveling through it. But then months later, when no one was leveling through this zone and they continued to spawn, they were just a point of frustration.
Yeah.
Because they would just straight up murder everyone in the zone until the whatever objective died and it despawned.
Well, in this one, I think it's more the opposite, that there's quests, weekly quests and stuff, like to kill one of the 20-person bosses, but there have to be enough people killing the single-person bosses and the 5-person bosses and the 10-person bosses before the biggest ones ever spawn. And so if there's not enough people around, they'll just, I guess, never spawn.
Which could be super frustrating, I'm sure.
Yep. But we'll see. I mean, right now it's super busy and, everyone seems to be having a good time with it, and there's all kinds of new stuff to explore, so I'm going to enjoy it.
Awesome. Kodra, you have been delving back into Souls games.
Yes. So you know how we were talking about chasing unicorns and how I like making sure that I'm always moving towards something? Guess what I'm always doing in the Souls games? I'm always moving towards something. And right now I'm playing a lot of Bloodbourne with Tam, and that sort of got me the itch to go back and play Dark Souls, because I never really gave that a fair shake. And wow, these games are really fun. Like, yes, everyone always talks about how Dark Souls games, games by From Software are very, very hard. This is true. Especially early on, they will kill you a lot. But what you can do is you can figure out what you're good at, and you can go kill that, and that will get you some souls, and you can take those souls and you can go level up, and you'll get better, and then you'll find you're comfortable fighting some other stuff, and you'll go kill that, and then you'll go back and you'll level up, and you're just slowly getting better, and you're getting to you're learning both in game and you're leveling up, and it's fun. It's very fun watching this happen and like feeling like, yes, I'm getting a little bit further than I was before.
Which was ultimately the thing you really liked about Rogue Legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Rogue Legacy also it's like, oh, you died, but you're going to be stronger the next time you go out. And Dark Souls is really good about that.
Coder's going to hate me for this, but for me, the most satisfying was Bloodbourne has these big dudes, and they're really predictable. Like, they're really deadly, but they're really predictable once you know what they're doing. And Kodra just kept getting murdered by them, to the point where you'd see them and just flee. And there were places we couldn't get to because there were dudes in the way. And he's like, I don't want to go that way. There's a big guy there. Let's just fight that guy. And I think we've been, like, actually fighting that guy maybe 3 or 4 times. Now they're just trivial.
Well, Dark Souls too, but Bloodborne more than anything rewards timing, knowing the exact right time to act, and especially with those guys, knowing how to get them into a staggered stance so that you can one-shot kill them is a timing thing that once I finally got it worked out, they became trivial.
Yeah, my point was more, until you actually started trying, you weren't getting anywhere with them.
Sure.
And what I love about those games is that, yeah, you're probably going to get killed by whatever it is you're about to attack, but you're going to learn by doing it.
Yeah, that's the thing I've always heard, is that basically you learn through every death.
Yeah, and so it is in your best interest to go and explore and go and, don't look at a thing and run away from it. Look at it and fight it and die to it. And when you fight it and you die to it, you realize how it killed you and how to beat it next time and how it moves.
That is the standard gameplay loop for roguelikes. It's kind of interesting to see that it applies there too.
It absolutely applies. And so it's like, but what I like about it, and what I didn't really like about earlier Souls games, and that I really like about Bloodbourne, is that earlier Souls games straight up reward cowardice. Like, don't fight anything you don't have to. Hide behind your shield the whole time. Cower in a corner. Don't take risks, because risks will kill you, and you won't move forward. Bloodbourne takes all of that, like, robs you of all of that and says, no, take risks or we'll punish you for it. And when you take risks, you learn and get better really quickly. And I think that's awesome. Like, there isn't a shield to hide behind. There isn't some hidden benefit to, or explicit benefit to avoiding confrontation.
The other thing, notably, the other thing about Bloodbourne over the Souls games is the enemies are also less able to hide behind shields. Like, there's only one enemy that we have actually fought that has a shield, and if you just do a basic attack against him, he will, like, stumble, and you can attack him immediately again. Whereas I'm playing through Dark Souls right now, and almost everyone has a shield. And that just means that they will also hide. And so we get it. For a while, I was getting into these hilarious matches where, like, me and the spear guys were just pressing shields, waiting for the other person to attack. And this shield, that guy knows not to attack if I have my shield up. So I actually had to, like, start baiting him into attacking and parrying him, which is something I used to be terrible at in Souls games, but thanks to Bloodborne, I got the timing pretty well. But the other thing I noticed is, boy, Bloodborne's a lot rougher than Dark Souls. Like, the first boss of Dark Souls is the Taurus demon, which, on my very first, like, encounter with him, I got him to, like, a third of his health, whereas in Bloodborne, we died, I want to say, 30 times to the Cleric Beast. Cleric Beast was real bad news. But yeah, these are really fun games. Not because they're super hard, but because you get to explore and you get to wander. And, like, that first time when I was like, hey, I have basically cleared out Central Yharnam. I guess I have a ton of souls. Time to go back and spend them all. That felt good. It's like, you earned all of this resource. Now it's time to go and enjoy spending it on awesome stuff. And that's what I like about the Souls games, is it makes me feel like all of this loot I got was hard-earned and feels so good to spend. I think Dark Souls is a little bit better as a new player experience, whereas Bloodborne, we straight up just got murdered for quite a while. Like, we spent 2 hours not progressing. And that's an easy way for me to get turned off of a game.
How much time is lost every time you die?
Depends. Honestly, a lot of the reason that we weren't progressing in Bloodborne early on is because we weren't taking risks. Like, that was the thing that really stood out to me, is it was when we started taking risks that we started progressing in Bloodborne at a very fast pace.
I don't necessarily agree.
It was when we decided, I bet we can run past these werewolves, where we encountered the first boss and could start leveling up. It was when we stopped seeing big scary things and avoiding them. That was when we moved forward dramatically in that game.
Well, no, it's when we started actually... No, see, I disagree.
Because it wasn't until we actually got to the Cleric Beast that we could level up.
No, that's not true.
That's 100% true. That's how the game
because
works.
we definitely leveled up before we saw the Cleric Beast.
Not accurate. I know because I'm looking at a guide to the game that says, get to the Cleric Beast first because you can't level up until you encounter it. find a boss and die to it so that you can level up.
I spent a lot of time dying to villagers, and then you decided to try going past them and found the cleric beast.
Okay.
This is probably still on Tam's stream.
But yeah, that's... And yeah.
So this time around, have you started with Dark Souls or Demon Soul?
I've played a bunch of Demon Souls, and maybe I should try it again, but I'm still demoralized by the Tower Guardian. It
was actually
thanks,
not
game.
all
You
that
have
hard as far as
completely-
bosses go, but yeah, he sure looks demoralizing.
What?
It's actually not that hard as far as bosses in that game go, but sure looks impressive.
He sure looks impressive, and he is in an arena with a whole bunch of archers shooting down at me immediately.
That's the real problem in that fight.
Yes. He's also fast enough that if I'm ignoring him, he will absolutely kill me. I don't know. I probably should go back to Demon Souls and try that again, but oh my goodness, that was a demoralizing fight. I'm playing Dark Souls with a little bit better understanding of the systems, so I'm probably not being less wasteful, but I feel like I'm more guided in my build.
It's very funny, or at least to me, it says probably something significant about the differences in our playstyle that I died about 10 times the first boss of Demon Souls and one-shot the Tower Guardian.
I one-shot the first boss.
Yeah, because he's defensive. Whereas with the Tower Guardian, I saw him and I saw his guys and ran straight up into the levels where all the archers are, and the big guy can't get to you there. I'm like, okay.
You can pretend to. He can't be terribly threatening.
I played a little bit of Demon Souls, and I probably need to return to it. The problem was it was one of the first games I played on my PS3, and I was very much not console literate at that point. I was bad at controlling that game, and now that I've played a lot more console games, I think maybe I would fare better. I just struggled with a controller, just the mechanics of a modern controller.
I can see that.
Yeah, I can see that.
And Destiny has basically been the game that has taught me the language of modern controller games. And now I'm actually decent at maneuvering with a controller. But back then, it's it was just sheer madness for me to go from a PS2 game to that game.
They're the same controller.
Right, but the way that they work is your average okay. So the games that I played on the PS2 with a controller were Ratchet and Clank. I stayed away from anything that had any semblance of a first or third person non-platformer. I was horrible at God of War. God of War.
Really?
I was horrible at that game. Yeah, I couldn't. I sucked massively at that game. So I was just bad at controllers, and now I'm significantly better at controllers. Not that I'm great at them, but I think I would fare better with Demon Soul now than I did, especially with my beloved Hori FPS Plus controller. I love that thing so much.
I don't like asymmetric sticks.
It was so worth importing. Okay. Anything else on the Souls game before we move on?
No, they're just really fun.
Okay. So another interesting thing has happened this week. Nintendo has learned that there's an internet.
They've learned about mobile devices.
Yes, they have.
They've known about this for a while, which is why they partnered with Gollum.
So, this has been all that anyone in my social feeds has been talking about for the last 2 days. On the 31st, I believe, they released Miitomo for Android and iOS. And to try and explain what it is weird. It's basically Tamagotchi Life with me avatars.
Not helping.
Yeah, it's weird. It's so weird. Yet I'm kind of oddly enthralled by it.
It would seem my entire Twitter feed is enthralled by it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it's interesting to me, and I don't think anyone else knows why it's interesting to them. The game asks you these weirdly personal questions as well, and then it tells other people your answers.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
that's the thing that I saw everyone talking about this and was like, oh, that's cute. I'm going to look at it. And then I saw that people were answering these really personal questions, and it was sharing their answers, and it's like, nope, that is not a game for me. I am avoiding the heck out of it. It's like, it looks cute, and nope.
Nintendo is collecting and sharing all of your secret question and answers.
Yeah. It's like at face value, if you take away any of the cuteness from the game, it is basically a very inefficient social network.
But it's cute.
But it's cute, and
that's
there's
the
mini
whole
games,
point.
and
Yeah.
there's clothing, and every day there's different clothing that's available, and you're rewarded for sharing your answers and listening to other people's answers, and people can come visit your apartment, and it's so weird. It's so weird.
It is I don't know. They made Facebook into a game, and the goal of that game is to appreciate your friends and focus more on them than anything else. As
Yes.
somebody on Facebook put it. Like, it is a social network.
Right,
It's
and
not a game.
but it's Nintendo doing a social network.
Yeah.
And all the joy you had of getting street passes on the 3DS, you're doing that with real life people. Like, the street passes are real life people, but they're not interactive real life people. But like, these are people, and they will talk to you, and they will comment back and forth, and you find yourself commenting on things that you would never comment on, just because the game took the time to tell you this little bit of detail, and you come up with a comment, and I've had weird conversations about my answers. And I guess for me, it's maybe easier because, like, I already share a large chunk of my personal life in my blog, so I live in a semi-public nature. But, like, I could absolutely see how this is a terrifying game on some levels. And I think the secret is going to be whether or not this actually means anything. Like, if this just remains a really kludgy social network, then I give it a week before nobody cares. If they can
Making Nintendo bank in Japan, so we'll see.
Well, like, nobody that I know of has spent any money on this. Like, you're earning enough credit regularly just by doing stupid stuff to buy the fake clothing, and life is good.
Yeah, but how long will that last?
Yeah, but like, so here's where I was leading with this is, like, unless this means something somehow, either it connects up to the Wii U or it connects up to the 3DS, and it somehow improves your experience on those platforms or the whatever the next generation of Nintendo consoles is, I don't see this going anywhere. Like, it doesn't really do anything yet. It's like the whole problem I have with Landmark. Landmark is a really cool toy, but it doesn't really do anything yet. And I feel like Miitomo is a really cool toy, but it's not giving me a reason to keep interacting other than because it's new. And I feel like they somehow need to marry this with some in-game benefit of messing around on this thing.
I think this is Nintendo dipping their feet into significant stuff that isn't on their main games platform because they're pretty clearly reevaluating their whole hardware strategy.
Again, they did announce last year they're partnering with a mobile company for this reason.
Yeah.
Right, and like right now, the best thing that you can do is get cute outfits. Or I think like there are 15% off coupons that you can get. And that's the only real world consequences of this thing. And I feel like it somehow needs to get connected otherwise. Like, give us a reason. What?
Look,
In case you missed the cough, that was Pokemon Go.
look, if you don't
Okay.
think this is going to be desperately interwoven with Pokemon Go, I wouldn't
You're
be
probably right.
I wouldn't be surprised if Pokemon Go required a Miitomo account.
So
No, and it probably does.
It will probably require a Nintendo account, which is this new thing that they've made, and the Miitomo also asks for.
But if Miitomo benefits Pokemon Go and Pokemon Go benefits Miitomo, then I can see this being really cool. All I really want back is my cool hats that I have on my 3DS on my Miitomo avatar. And there's no way to get them.
Like those two.
Yeah, like I want cross flow
Really cool
between
stuff on my
things.
3DS.
And my fear is that since all of that is old tech, they won't integrate it with last generation.
So I can log into Miitomo using the same account I log into my Wii with.
Yeah, and I can do the same thing. Like, that's what I logged into Miitomo with initially, was my Nintendo Network account that I use on my 3DS and my Wii U.
So I expect things are coming. Who knows what they'll be? Nintendo might, or they might not, honestly, but whatever. It's gonna be weird. We're in a brave new world here as far as Nintendo goes.
Brave New World of actually the internet.
I applaud them for what they've done so far, because like they've absolutely gotten enough buzz this week. Everyone is talking about it. I was actually really annoyed because it wouldn't work on my phone at first. So that's a whole other discussion. Is there's a whole slew of Android users that are pissed at the moment because they have blocked rooted Androids. But that's not really that unusual. Blizzard does the same. I was frustrated because I don't actually have a rooted device, but I did at one point. And apparently whatever flag was set at that point was what they were blocking. However, they released a new patch and now it works on my phone.
I'm having way more fun with Powerpuff Yourself right now.
Yes.
Yeah, Powerpuff Yourself is pretty great.
This I definitely did participate in.
It also doesn't require me to share a bunch of creepy information about myself.
The thing with the Miitomo questions is they're just really weird. It's not that it's like necessarily super private always. Some of them are just really weird.
I have this theory about that whole thing, but it's probably a little bit lengthy for where we are in the podcast.
Yeah.
But like, I'll be really interested to see if Miitomo is still being used next week, because if it is, it will confirm a theory I have about the greater internet. And basically, what have people learned from Facebook?
Nothing. I mean, wait.
Possibly a lot.
So there's a weird question that they ask that I encountered pretty early on is think in your mind of flowers. How many flowers do you see? And I said 3. Well, later on, Miitomo starts telling people that because you said 3, it means that's how many dates you're going to go on in your life. What? How do those even relate? I feel like there's a cultural reference there that I'm missing.
Probably.
And I think that maybe some of the weirder questions are really just translation oddness. Anyway, but yeah, I'll be interested to see if by next week anyone cares about this thing.
If they do, that'll be significant. Because what they don't have going on for them is what a lot of other social, like nascent social networks try to do, which is get a bunch of like internet personalities to prop them up early on. But Miitomo is definitely not doing that.
No. They do, however, reward you greatly for mass consumption of people. Every time you level up in either your friend status or your style status, Nintendo gives you prizes. But anyway, Tam, new Infinity book?
Oh yeah, this weekend is Adeptcon, which is a big competitive miniatures event. And the new Infinity book was launched there. Whereas for anybody not there, they're not going to be able to. Pre-orders just started this week, so we won't be seeing it until early May. But what's really interesting is they redid the game for their 3rd edition and got it pretty close to right. And this book is sort of filling out the stuff that they didn't quite get. They really wanted to just update the core rulebook and let the other 2 expansion books that existed just kind of stay as they were. But there were too many like rules holes and profiles that weren't super updated and so on and so forth that they wound up having to push back their next expansion book and put this one in as a kind of stopgap to bring everything up to date, because just their previous idea proved that it wasn't going to work. And it's really thorough. It's really thorough. It's really cool to see, because they went through, fixed up a lot of sort of questionable rules, fixed up a lot of balance issues. I have a hard time picking out any given unit across pretty much the entire game now that doesn't have a place. And
does that include Neoterra bolts?
It includes Neoterra bolts, honestly. I think they've got, and this is a game that has a few hundred different units, and what is it, 8 factions now? Yeah, 8 factions, some of which have multiple sub-factions.
I was about to say, I think the key here is those sub-factions.
And so it's like, you're talking about a game that functionally has, like, 4, 7, 11, 14, 17, 22, 23 factions that are all, some of which cross-pollinate. And at this point, pretty much all of it is totally functional. There's nothing where I would say, like, I mean, I think of 40K, and it probably a good half to 2/3 of the factions are like, maybe don't play that one. It's not, I mean, maybe play that if you really like it, but it's kind of, old, or it's not quite as good as the more recent ones or whatever. And like even a game that's very competitive like War Machine still has the same kind of thing going on, where not even remotely is every unit in War Machine competitive. Like, not even close. And Infinity really is. And I think it's really cool that they've updated a bunch of stuff, still are coming up with new interesting ideas, and I'm expecting a fairly big shift in the kind of overall metagame with this new book that I'm going to be really interested to see if I'm right about, where instead of bringing sort of hyper-specialized units, there's value in bringing generalist units that could do a bunch of different things. But even without all of that, it's really cool to play a game that has a plethora of options, and when new players start, they can people genuinely and honestly tell them, "Oh, just buy this. Pick a faction and buy the minis you like the best. Pick the ones that you think look the coolest. Pick the ones that have like a story that you like, because you can do that, and you're not gonna cripple yourself." And so it's really exciting for me to see them like put a lot of effort and time into making sure that everything is functional. Like, there's no duds. I mean, there were a couple before this book. There were two or three models that I was like, no, these are garbage. Like, straight up, these are terrible. There's no reason to bring them unless you're doing a very specific thing. And now all of them are, no, I can think of good reasons to bring them. I don't know if I'd bring them every time, but I'd certainly bring them. And I really like that. It's really fun to be able to play with whatever minis I think look the coolest, and be able to play against people who are bringing stuff that they like because they think it looks cool, or plays cool, or does a cool thing that they like. I'm really pro games that offer a lot of genuine choice and not a lot of false choice.
Well, and it seems like these sheer number of models and the relatively limited number that you get to choose for a specific that you're going to put on a table at one time would seem to lead itself towards a lot of different alternate choices.
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons I've bought so heavily into the game was I put together I started to, as you do when you start a new minis game, you're like, okay, I put together a list and I'm going to buy the models I need for this list. And in other game systems, that's a several $100 investment. And so you want to play that one thing. And in Infinity, it's like, I was able to do that for $100. So okay. And I have some extra options because I got a few extra minis that I didn't need. But and so it was like, okay, I got this taste of this. Well, what if I want to try this totally different faction out? I don't need to delve hugely into it. I can just try a single list, and if I like it, I can buy some more stuff to like keep swapping that out. And eventually I can swap all kinds of things out and have completely different lists. But it's this sort of slow, it lends itself really well to this slow grow, and so you can try all of these different things out without feeling like you're just pouring tons of money into this game just to like accomplish a single thing. You can swap one model out and get a pretty significant change in whatever you're playing, and that's fun because you can just buy one thing and be like, oh cool, this thing I was doing is totally different. And like, now that I've done that, maybe I'll switch this other guy out and that'll do something cool. I also really like their sculptors. There's little things that I like that the game does. Like, the game is super diverse and super inclusive. And it's such a little thing, especially like in a minis game, you'd think it wouldn't matter. But whenever I buy a new box of minis and there's 2 male minis and 2 female minis in it, I just think that's cool. And sometimes I don't even notice at first because they're in like power armor or whatever, and I'm like, oh, huh, I look closely and like, oh, okay, there's some like minor details that make me think that maybe these are different types of people, but it's cool to have the diversity.
I mean, especially if you're selling, it's good that people can sculpt whatever they want, can build minis, which minis they want.
Yeah, I mean, Infinity has a larger population of female players than any other minis game I've played, because you can very reasonably have like I saw somebody who did an entire like hot pink and black girl power force. And it looks amazing with like these graffiti spray painted bases and the whole 9 yards. And like that's just something that isn't really supported elsewhere, and I just think that's really cool.
It'll be interesting. Some of the changes for some of the factions like Toha are something I'm keeping an eye on. I'm curious how it's going to play out.
Yeah, there's a lot of shifting going on. And I think that's good, as long as it's everybody doing the shifting. Keeps it fresh.
Also on the physical gaming front, Kodra.
Yeah.
We have a new Magic the Gathering set.
Magic is really doing a good job at getting sets to play to a theme. So we're out of Zendikar. We're no longer fighting big monstrous Eldrazi, and now we are in the Shadows over Innistrad, which is their horror-themed plane with zombies and vampires and crazy militias and cultists and all that type of stuff. And
does that mean we're back to double-sided werewolf cards?
We're back to werewolf cards, yes. Double-sided werewolf cards. And double-sided a lot of things, actually. There are a lot of things transforming that aren't what they seem to be. And it's all about one of the planeswalkers, Jace, trying to solve a mystery. Trying to figure out what's going on with Innistrad, why everything is going crazy. Like, angels and vampires alike are succumbing to, quote-unquote, the madness, which means that madness is back as a mechanic, which is quite interesting to me, because that's a really fun, interesting mechanic that's very powerful. But what I think is a more interesting... And madness is... If you discard this card, you can play this card for a typically reduced cost. So if you have cards that require you to discard cards to activate some ability, and then you have madness cards, you're just getting all sorts of bonus value there. But the other new mechanic, which is more of a like blue and white mechanic, is Investigate, which puts clue tokens onto your battlefield, which are artifacts that you can spend 2 generic mana, and sacrifice them to draw a card. So you're trying to solve the mystery, and solving the mystery ends up drawing you more cards. And there's a bunch of cool stuff, but the big one is definitely the transform mechanic. There's transforming planeswalkers, there's transforming lands. I actually think that's my favorite. Is there's a new land that you can pay 5, sacrifice 5 creatures, and it transforms into a 9/7 flying haste lifelink indestructible demon, which is a really good way to end a game. Basically, there's a demon living in the bottom of an old church, and if you sacrifice enough worshippers, the demon awakens and breaks free.
What is it like? Is there an upkeep cost that makes it difficult to keep it alive?
No.
If you get this out, you probably win.
Yeah.
It's if you manage to sacrifice 5 creatures and pay 5 mana, you have a 9/7 flying haste indestructible lifelink creature. So he's probably going to stabilize your life total immediately. He's probably going to put your opponent on the back foot immediately. It's really good. I like the Thing in Ice, which is a blue creature. It's colorless and 1 blue for a 0/4 wall, but it has 4 ice counters on it, and each time you cast an instant or sorcery, you remove 1. When you remove all of them, the thing in ice flips to become the Awoken Horror, which is a 7/8, which returns all non-horror creatures to their controller's hand. Also a really good way to end the game.
Okay, so how do are they double-sided as in top and bottom?
Yep. No.
Okay.
No.
There is no back. There's no... The brown back is not on these cards.
They come with a separate card that says, when you draw this card, pull out your double-sided one.
Yep.
Okay. I'm like, isn't that a dead giveaway what your next draw is?
No. If you aren't playing with sleeves, they have the cards that you can use to replace them.
Okay. But even if you are playing with sleeves, you have to have them double-sleeved at least, so you can flip it.
Or you can remove it from the one sleeve and then place it back in. Yeah, I know a lot of people still play with those cards just because they want to have a clear sleeve for their double-sided stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like werewolves, all werewolves transform the same way. If no spells were cast on the previous turn, all werewolves transform, and then they transform back if one player played 2 or more spells on a given turn. Werewolves are a really tough tempo match to play, because you have to keep playing spells so they don't transform.
Wow.
Yup, but it's a really cool flavor, like a very flavorful, it feels like you're on it. When you're playing a blue deck, you feel like you're on an investigation, mostly because you're just trying to dig for your answer with all of the various card draw mechanics that are in the game. And there's a lot of stuff going on with you care about what's in your graveyard, and your graveyards become gigantic. Because you're doing a lot of self-milling in the hopes of getting things into your graveyard. Oh, and my new favorite card, Triskaidekaphobia.
Yeah, okay.
Triskaidekaphobia is an enchantment for 3 generic and a black.
Does it do something if you have 13 creatures in your graveyard?
No, even better. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose 1. Both players lose 1 life, then any players with exactly 13 life lose the game. Or each player gains 1 life, then any player with exactly 13 life loses the game.
Oh.
Triskaidekaphobia.
This is at the beginning of your upkeep?
Yep.
Oh.
Actually, I think it's the other way. I think if at the beginning of your upkeep, either player has 13 life, they lose the game, then either each player gains 1 or loses 1 life.
That order makes more sense.
Yeah.
Thought they considered it important magic for you to be able to respond, generally speaking.
Well, one of those effects goes on the stack, and then you can make your decision. The effect goes on the stack, then you can respond to the stack. So, like, if I say we're gaining 1 life or we're losing 1 life, you can decide to respond to that. To, like, maybe deal yourself a point of damage so you don't die.
You have until
the effect resolves.
Right. Really, you have until the beginning of your next turn.
Yeah.
To do something about that.
Turn.
Right.
Their next turn. Because it's only on the controller's upkeep that it triggers. Not every upkeep. But yeah, it's a fun card.
The thing I always wonder is how competitive cards like that ever actually are.
Not really. That card's probably not very competitive. Especially when there are currently pain lands that allow you to deal 1 damage to yourself at basically instant speed.
Also the fact that unless you push them very close to 13 life to start with, that's not a fast way to get there.
No, it's not. But I don't know. I did not do super awesome in my pre-release. I went 2-2. I got beaten in the face by the Archangel Avacyn going insane a whole bunch. Avacyn is another like mythic card from the previous Innistrad block. Like Avacyn Restored was a set. In this format, she's just a really amazing angel that if a creature you control dies, she becomes a insane 6/5 angel that deals 3 damage to every other creature. It's really bad news. And I lost to a guy who played it in every single game we played.
So the thing related to Magic the Gathering that I realized or I found out existed this week that makes me extremely interested is Pauper.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know this was a thing. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, Pauper's really... I know there's I don't know much about the meta, but yes, Pauper is definitely a thing.
Yeah, I've heard it's mostly a Magic Online thing.
Oh, is it? I could believe that.
But, like, I could just remember throughout all the expansions, like, some of the commons were the more interesting cards to me. Like, they did kind of cool little things. And for those who have no idea what Pauper is, it's basically a format where all you get to play with is, if it's ever been printed as a common in any set, you can play with it, and there's a very small ban list. I want to say there were like 8 cards on it or something like that are banned. But it's basically any common card that has existed anywhere in the history of Magic is fair game, which allows you to build really crazy decks without spending a lot of money.
I'm now actually curious, and I'm going to have to look this up, because Lightning Bolt, Dark Ritual, Healing Salve, and Giant Growth were all commons.
They are not on the ban list.
Yeah, but the 5th of that cycle is Ancestral Recall. Was that common?
No, it wasn't common. It was not common.
We sure? Okay, it looks like it was rare.
That's a rare.
That's probably for the best.
But Vision Charm is a common, and that was 1 blue draw a card.
But it's not 1 blue draw 3 cards.
Right.
Recall.
It's but still there are card draw options that are common.
Hmm.
It just seems like a really cool format, and supposedly there's bots out there that will literally just give you random commons in the hopes of getting more people playing Pauper, like on Magic the Gathering online. So it's almost made me interested in trying to build a Pauper deck.
I'm curious, like, Dark Ritual is on there. I wonder what I can do with that.
You did lots of stuff. Dark Ritual Lightning Bolt, or Dark Ritual, God, what was the combo I used to use? Dark Ritual, I don't know. It's been so long. There were Dark Ritual to like 3 Lightning Bolts was something I did several times.
Those are different colors, but I'm sure something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, Paupers, I've heard interesting things about Pauper. I heard you could do Pauper Reanimator, which I kind of would want to look into.
Well, do we have anything else we want to talk about before we close things up?
I think that seems good.
Okay. Well, hopefully this really did work, and our sound test did actually ensure that I'm not a chipmunk this week. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's show, and I want to thank everyone who struggled through the last 2 weeks and is still a fan of the show.
Struggled through last week? Are you kidding me? I've never laughed so hard.
Well, we had, so we had last week with Chipmunk Bell, and then we had the week before, which was the last week on our previous server, where people were cutting out and going robot-y, and so yeah, it's been a couple rough weeks. So thank you for listening, and I was completely overwhelmed with the amount of support that I had this week over the Chipmunk thing. And I realized like it was funny, but still,
incredibly funny. It was way funnier than you realize. Hashtag Chipmunk Bell forever.
But like it really was humbling to see the number of people that were on board with us no matter what happened. So special thanks to those folks. Anyway, we will see you next week, and remember to be playing Gone Home this month. And good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Hopefully I am not a chipmunk this week.
Hopefully you are not a chipmunk.
Although it was really entertaining.
It was really, really funny.
God, my wife laughed so much. Oh my god. Especially, like Tam said, the unintentionally funny thing where I'm talking about us getting new voice setup.
Yes.
Yeah.